you'll enjoy.
Well, welcome back into OpenLine. Chuck Long here with one of my very favorites, Kevin Kennedy, and I know one of your very favorites too. In the legal field, one of the top names, the Kennedy Law Firm, in business over 38 years, serving everyone throughout Tennessee. Kevin, we've got a lot of folks on the line with us, and I tell you what, you're helping a lot of folks this evening. If you do have one of those questions, just give us a call at 737-7587. Any of those legal questions, whether it's for you, whether it's for a family member, maybe a friend. But we are going on to Mark right now. So, Mark, thanks for holding with us. Do you have a question or a comment for Kevin?
A question.
Okay. All right, go ahead.
Well, I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to talk to you. And also, I would like to know, I've been on disability for a long time. I'm trying to get I'm basically disabled, whatever. And it's taken such a long time, and I'm about to get ready to give up hope. Damn near 3 years. What is your suggestion that I can do to get along with going on?
Okay, well, here's the real world. So many people are listening out here and they're trying to make applications for a disability claim. There's a couple, you know, it's a Social Security disability, and then sometimes you have an insurance policy that will pay temporary and permanent disability. Here's the word. The word is that it hinges back on medical proof, medical testimony. So when you go to see your doctor, you need to explain to them what your conditions are in such a way that you can convince them that you are permanently disabled, medically disabled. You're just not able to do it. They'll have to put it in their records. And you know, some doctors are reluctant. They're saying, no, I'm not going to do this. This guy's just malingering. But that's why it's so important to try to have a good relationship with your doctor, and that we don't mislead, that we don't tell a lie just to get money, because those guys are slick too. I've told you, both my sons are doctors, and the system wants to help you, but you have to help yourself. No one wants fraud. The system would fall apart if they allowed fraud through there. So I would say keep seeing my doctor. Articulate as clear as you can on your disabilities you're paying, and try to get them to give it to you in writing.
And thank you so much for calling in, Mark. And you know, a lot of times you have to advocate for yourself. You have to make sure, that they realize what the situation is.
Yes.
All right, so thanks so much, Mark. We're going right back to the phones right now. I believe it is Harold on the line with us. Harold, do you have a question for Kevin?
Hi, Chuck.
Hi, Harold.
Mr. Kennedy. I have a question for you and a comment. I was wanting to know, since it was 2 counties and a person got charged with a crime, but he did not get a warrant or arrest, is that legal? And I'll hang up and listen. Have a good night. Thank you.
Thank you, Harold, for the question. Well, first off, they're going to have to make a decision which county the crime was committed in. So if it was in Davidson County, you need to be prosecuted in Davidson County. If you come up there and they say, well, it's clear we got him in Montgomery County, then the lawyers would try to dismiss that case. And you know, they have this problem in murder cases all the time, where was the person murdered in Tennessee or Kentucky, those states. And so it gets down to many times those defense lawyers say, well, you can't prove it happened in Tennessee. So I think the jurisdiction will always be an issue, and so you can think about those things. But yeah, I'd move to dismiss on those if there was a question.
All right, thanks so much for calling in, Harold. Once again, those questions that you ask help so many people in addition to just the ones that you're asking for yourself. Yes. So thank you so much. If you are just tuning in, you are watching OpenLine. It is Ask an Expert, Ask an Attorney, and one of the top attorneys in the state of Tennessee, Kevin Kennedy from the Kennedy Law Firm. The number is there on your screen, 737-7587. You know, a lot of times I know people think, well, I don't know if this pertains to, you know, just me. It's fine if it just pertains to you. Yep. A lot of times, though, it helps a lot of other people.
Always.
Kevin, I think one of the things that we hear from the people most of the a lot of the times often has to do with just maybe a situation with neighbors, a situation, because that can get really, really tricky in how you approach that.
You never want to get into a confrontation with your neighbors. They say, there's an old saying, good fences make good neighbors. What does that really mean? That we don't get on our neighbor's property, they don't get on ours. You can win the battle but lose the war. What do you mean, Mr. K? What I mean is you can say, hey, guy, your dog keeps coming over here. You can cause agitation. Hey, man, you're putting your cameras on my house. We have a right to you're causing some aggravation. If I had a problem with a neighbor, a driveway, a property line, I'd go consult with a lawyer. And sometimes you can get a survey, but does a survey solve everything? No. That's why you should ponder, discuss with a lawyer, what are my options? There's always options, evaluate, and then there's a good discussion, what is the best option at this time? What we might do this year is different from what we might do next year. The Kevin Kennedy plan, you know what he says? This is plan A, plan B, plan C. And if all three of those didn't work, I'm into plan D. They said, well, you didn't explain. I said, we hadn't created plan D because we're always going to back up. We'll hit them again to protect ourselves.
Well, and Kevin, when people are sometimes thinking, you know, what do I need a lawyer or not for this? But one of the things I often find interesting is that attorneys understand sometimes you need to challenge the evidence, but on the other hand, sometimes you need to suppress the evidence.
You're good. You're real good. You know, I am shocked sometimes on people not knowing that is illegal evidence. And, you know, in that big trial, we were disputing back hearsay. Well, they are correct, but they're incorrect because there is an exception to the hearsay rule. Wow. And so lawyers make so many good and the judge has got to call it. Well, does the judge make a right decision or not? If they don't, you can appeal it. Will will they agree? And so many times we have what's known as a dissenting opinion. Chuck and I, we could both be learned in the law, but I interpret the facts this way and you interpret. So which one of us is right? That's what you pursue. And so, and again, if we have a dispute with a neighbor, it is our posture that it fits in there. And they say, well, I disagree. Well, you have a right to go to court. But many times, what would the reasonable person do under those circumstances? Common sense.
Well, and you know, if you've been pondering whether or not you need to go see an attorney about a situation that you're facing, this is a great first stop for you. You can give us a call at 737-7587. Ask that legal question, whether or not it has to do with facing the insurance company, planning an estate, planning your will. Kevin, I think this bears repeating. I've asked you about this before, but it's just so fascinating to me because so many people find themselves in a situation, whether it's a traffic stop or a traffic accident.
Yes.
They don't know what to do. They either say too much or they don't record with their phone, but kind of go over what can happen at a traffic
Here's what
situation.
I like to do. Let's say Chuck and I leave here and we're going to, where's your favorite place to eat, Chuck?
I would say 51 North Tap Room.
I knew he would go there. So anyway, well, the blues come off. And if I'm driving, the first thing, even Kevin Kennedy, I need to get my composure. Let me get why? Because I need to think clear. And one of the things that come from me, I never admit that I'm guilty of anything. What does that mean? I don't give evidence to be used against me. So I start with those two premises, and then I would try to work with the officer the very best I could. And you might even ask the question, you say, sir, what am I being pulled over for? Why do I ask that? Because he may give me some evidence for my defense. And so, you know, are they trained as well as we are? That's a good question. And the circumstances, we can go from that. And guess what? So much of the time, they make a lot of mistakes, Chuck. And mistakes will always make a difference. So point out the mistakes on that. And, you know, if you get a ticket, you can go to court. Sometimes the police officers never show, and here's your favorite words. Your Honor, we moved to dismiss. Dismiss, and now it caught our breath, and next time I'm making Chuck drive because I wouldn't get, so we always have to be sensitive. We make a little light joke of that, but every time you're out there, you put yourself at risk.
Absolutely. All right, if you do have those questions, 737-7587 is the number to call. Let's go back to the lines right now. Mark is on the line with us. Good evening, Mark. Do you have a question or a comment for Kevin?
Hello.
Hello, Mark. Go ahead.
Hello.
Hi, Mark.
Hello.
Can you hear us, Mark?
Yes.
All right, go ahead with your question.
I got hurt back in 2007 on a job, and my boss didn't have workman's comp, but the people he was subbing through did. And so I got my attorney to get me on disability. It took 3.5 years to get my disability,
and I finally got a settlement. And then 6 months later, we finally went to court and got a workman's comp settlement.
Okay.
Well, about 3 years later, Social Security office sent me a letter saying they're going to penalize my Social Security check $197 a month because of the workman's comp setback, or something they call it.
Right.
And I tried and tried and tried to get a hold of my attorney, and he never would return my call. But now I finally got a hold of him, and he's still keeping me, jerking me around and jerking me around. And I've called the Social Security Department. They told me a couple of years ago that at March of 2022, that all that would be paid back
Yes.
of the overpayment, but they're still taking it out.
Yeah. Well, some of the things that you might consider doing, you may have to change lawyers, but I would probably go to the Social Security office, let them explain and see if they can pull your records and see if in fact it was supposed to pay out. Do they make mistakes? Absolutely, because it's people like you and I and Chuck that actually work for the Social Security Administration. And you've heard me say this, the squeaky door gets the oil. You're going to have to advance, you're going to have to explain, and if they've made a mistake, you want them to correct it and then pay you those monies back. And if lawyers lose interest in your case and you can't get in touch with them, I think that's time to try to change gears and go talk with another lawyer. You know, that's just a fact of life. Some people stop talking to you for whatever reason. Then we need to, if my mechanic wouldn't call me back, I couldn't go back to him. If my real estate agent wouldn't call me back, I couldn't go back to him.
You always, if plan A is not working, go to plan B.
Absolutely. And then making plan C is if that doesn't work.
Absolutely. Mark, thank you so much for calling in. So good luck with that. We are going back to the lines right now. I think it's Carolyn is on the line with us. Carolyn, good evening. Do you have a question or a comment for Kevin?
Yes, I sure do. We have a couple of farms and cattle and machinery and stuff like that. We have 3 children. 2 of them want to farm, and the other one is disabled. She's in a wheelchair. I would like to leave her money and maybe a house or something. That's what she would want, and I'd like to have her daughter, my daughter, oversee it for her. Make sure she's always taken care of.
Yeah.
And I wanted to know if, and my husband won't make out a will.
Okay.
What
Here's
can we do?
Here's the real world. You need to go to a lawyer, talk to that lawyer privately. Perhaps you can move some of those things into a trust and make her daughter the trustee over the trust to pay for the health, safety, and welfare of your daughter that's in a wheelchair. I do salute you. I'm so sorry to hear that you have a family member that's restricted to a wheelchair, but I'm telling you to take a proactive approach. And there's a lot of times, I hear this, people with farms, they say, well, you deed the farm to the kids. Hello, come in, we need to get some. I'm not going to do it. Well, you know, if you can present a good enough case, say, Daddy, this is what we need to do because the taxes are going to take this. I know you don't want that. Then you can come up with different options and plans. So continue to do a proactive approach. Go see a lawyer privately. Tell them, and you may have to take it in phases. But I think you've got a good plan working. Just work it. And remember this, if you don't get it done, it won't get done.
There you go. You do have to be proactive on that. So, Carolyn, thank you so much for calling in. So, and again, good luck with that. You know, and that's another thing that people sometimes don't realize is that if you don't have a will, when you're trying to distribute that money,
yes,
yeah, it can get very
in a
expensive.
trust, Chuck, any one of our family members could have a car wreck, injured, and then they find themselves that, well, who, and we're going to take care of. And let's just be frank about it. Some siblings don't want to share. So we have to intervene because I don't want my family into a fight. And so there's one finger pointing at you and 3 back at me. Now, you know, I have 3 children and I want to be fair with all of them. So I should be taking a proactive approach when that time comes and then making my plan. Will it work? Yes. And then, okay, remember, Kev's not ever shut in. He's always looking at exit strategy. And if there was, I'd try to figure out a way that I can do a backup plan. If I could get it established, get it settled, that's what I'm going to do. And if it didn't, I've got an exit strategy, backup, and we're going to do something different. One of my wealthiest clients was reluctant to put a lot of money and property in his child's name. So you know what he did? He put it in trust. Why did he put it? Because he was afraid their marriage might have been a little rocky if he'd put it all in there. Then there's an argument that she may have taken part of those things.
You got to know that. So speaking of you have to know that, Kevin, that's another thing. That's such an advantage that you guys have. I know some law firms, they specialize in 1 or 2 or 3 areas. You guys have such a broad knowledge, but you have experts in so many different areas. And that's so important when somebody comes in to see you, because you can help them in many ways.
It's so true. And then what you'll catch me, I have as much experience as any of them, but I love to go in. I say, well, what about this? I hear this quite, Kevin, you can't do that. And I say, oh yeah, you're right. You can't, but he can, and he helps me get through some unbelievable challenges. When they say, I've never heard of that, that's because we create. And so I love to come back to my research specialist. I say, I want you to research this. When he comes back, he says, Kev, we got him. And y'all can go to the bank. We got him. And I have one really super rich commercial developer, and I'll never forget him. He was powerful, and he said, now, Kevin, we're going to move on yours, but he said, just make sure you're right. Well, those are some marching orders. So I went back to my lawyers that were, I didn't take one, Chuck. I took 3, because he's a big client. And I said, you check this, because I want a general consensus before we move. And he'll keep us as long as we're right.
There you go. Wise words. All right, let's go back to the lines right now. Vernon is on the line with us. Vernon, good evening. Do you have a question or a comment for Kevin?
Oh, yes.
Go ahead, Vernon.
Oh, I've kind of got about the same case that Mark had just earlier.
Okay.
My lawyer done me the same way with the disability and the workman's comp.
I'm sorry.
So on the workman's comp, which is about a 6 month, a year later that it got settled from the disability, and the settlement and on the workman's comp was $74,000.
All right.
And then I got $54,000, so the attorney got $20,000.
Okay.
But so now I'm having to pay back, penalize my check. Shouldn't he be having to pay part of that $20,000 that he got instead of me paying it all?
Well, you make a great argument. One of the things the legislature is doing, and you know, whenever people say we're going to get a lot of jobs because we are going to do tort reform and we are going to reform workers' comp. Well, guess what? If we are the workers, that we don't want those laws like $74,000 for a disabled man, you shouldn't be penalized. So when they do these change of laws, it usually benefits big business or the government, and it usually cuts down the little man. Well, how are we going to fight back? You need to talk to the senator, talk to the representative to try to protect this. And I'm sure there's a statute out there that says that the lawyer is entitled to his 20%. Now, why is that important? Because it's public policy. One of the public policy, be able to get a lawyer, because no one has $20,000 just pay the lawyer. It might work or might not work. But when he becomes your partner and he's getting 20%, he will fight for you so that he can obtain that. So the system is designed to, from the lawyer's perspective, to help you. He's the last vestige between you and destruction. So you make a good argument, but the better argument could be made, hey, don't y'all try to cut in on my Social Security benefits because of this workers' comp. I'm disabled. The law wants to help disabled people.
All right, thanks so much for calling in, Vernon. If you have a question here for OpenLine for Kevin Kennedy from the Kennedy Law Firm, make sure you get on the line with us so that we have enough time to answer it. That's 737-7587. We'll take a short break and back with more OpenLine right after that.